Hello everyone, Professor Berninger here, putting a little wrap up on our time with Henry David Thoreau and his marvelous treasure of a book, Walden. Some of you might be wondering why we're talking about Walden in literature class, because it is, in a way, nonfiction. He took 2 years of life at his cabin and compressed it into one, but otherwise it's really nonfiction writing. But there really aren't classes that study nonfiction. It's also philosophy, but it's a very practical philosophy. I, for one, am thrilled it somehow has made it into the literature world. And I do understand that in some way, why it's considered a work of literature. I think because it does talk about humanity in people in a sensitive, artful, however practical way. So it's a book that's kind of hard to classify. Maybe that's one of the best things about it. So I want to just hit some of the highlights here. Number one, take command of your life. I actually think that is the core principle of Walden, is to take command of your life. So in class the other day, Asia marvelously said, I don't want to live in a hut. Come on, I want a decent house and a nice car and a family, and I want some stuff. I like stuff. You didn't quite say it like that, Asia, but pretty good, right? And Thoreau would be like, have you thought about it? Okay, you're good. You thought about it. You know you're making a choice. What he doesn't want you to be is a mindless sheep following the flock, right? So I'll read a little bit to you. The millions are awake enough for physical labor. So millions of people are awake enough to lift stuff, move stuff, plow a field. But only 1 in a million is awake enough for effective intellectual exertion. Only 1 in 100 million to a poetic or divine life. Obviously he's exaggerating a little bit. Maybe that's what makes it literature. But he's saying, millions are awake enough to move some lumber around. But how many are awake enough for effective intellectual exertion? That's what he wants. And of course, for a poetic or divine life, it's very few, and that's probably true. But I think a lot of us can be awake to not be followers, to exert our intellect, and to think for ourselves. To be awake is to be alive. I've never yet a man who was quite awake. How could I have looked him in the face? We must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake, not by mechanical aids, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn, which does not forsake us in our soundest sleep. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by conscious endeavor. Now you're always saying, what separates people from animals? Are we a part of nature or apart from it? Well, in some ways, we're apart from it, okay? We have intellects, we can have things like money, right? Animals don't have money. We can have a $20 bill that someone gives us for working, and we know that someone will give us products, or we can hire somebody else with those $20. Animals don't do that, right? We have an intellect, other animals do not. To affect the quality of the day is the highest of arts. So applying your intellect, being awake, that's what he wants us to be. Now, he certainly has a particular way of being awake and what he thinks being awake should lead to, but the bottom line is he wants us all to be awake. So he goes to the woods to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, right? Survival. I told you, he's not that far outside of Concord. He went to his mom's for dinner often. He wasn't roughing it in a cave here, people. He doesn't claim that, right? But he wants to go out to this cabin in the woods and just think about the essential facts, the essential aspects of life. And that's what he does. And then he writes about it, right? He writes about it. So take command of your life. Also, another great thing that I know a lot of you will like, and a lot of people like this about Thoreau, is that nonconformity is okay, right? Here's one of the more famous quotations. I've seen this on posters and, carved pieces of wood made in China. Why should we be in such desperate haste to succeed, and in such desperate enterprises? If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. So be yourself, right? Nonconformity. Don't be in a desperate haste to succeed, because when you say, oh, I've got to be successful, it's usually somebody else's measure of success, right? Whether it's a job that pays a certain amount, whether it's having a house, and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we need in life, but don't ever adopt someone else's measure of success, right? Don't ever adopt someone else's definition of success. You have to decide that for yourself. So if you don't keep pace with your companions, and pace, that means moving at the same pace in step, maybe it's because you hear a different drummer, right? Step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. So march to the beat of your own drummer. Be your own drummer, right? So nonconformity is okay. Spend time alone and disconnected in the woods. I came out to the woods today. I'm so glad I did. Meditation, understand yourself. Do not, we talked about this in class, disconnecting in every way, phone, social media, etc., television media, news. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of time. I love to be alone. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. We're for the most part lonely when we go abroad among men and we stay in our chambers. A man thinking or working is always alone. Let him be where he will. Some of you brought that up in your papers as well. Society is commonly too cheap, right? Our interactions with people are always somewhat shallow. But spending time alone has never been more important. And as I said in class, it's essential, and it's what we rarely have. Just the way people used to ride a horse, ride in a cart for an hour to get somewhere, to pick something up, working in a field. Manual labor gives your mind a chance to rebuild, to rethink, to do things we don't even know what it's doing. So that's really, really important. As uptight as Thoreau seems in a way in this book, he says, relax, right? Let us spend one day as deliberately as nature. Okay, so one of the lessons in Walden is that there are lessons all around us in nature. Nature is in harmony with itself, and we can learn a lot from that. Let us spend one day as deliberately as nature, and not be thrown off the track by every nutshell and mosquito's wing that falls on the rails. Let us rise early and fast, or break fast, gently and without perturbation. Let company come, let company go. Let the bells ring and the children cry, determined to make a day of it. Why should we knock under and go with the stream? Let us not be upset and overwhelmed in that terrible rapid and whirlpool called a dinner, situated in the meridian shallows. Weather this danger, and you're safe for the rest of the day. So I love this. I wrote this when I was in college. That my junior and senior year, I learned a lot, read a lot of books, wrote some great papers. Read a lot of great books, wrote some papers. But it was hard. I didn't have a lot of friends at UAlbany. I was a commuter. I used to carry this quotation on a piece of paper in my pocket, and I'd read it multiple times throughout the day. Let us do not be thrown off the track by every nutshell and mosquito's wing. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat the small stuff, is what people say now. I like a lot where Thoreau gets into talking about maintaining a connection with the animal inside you, right? Thoreau may be, the ultimate intellect, writing, reading all the time. But he also was very much wanted to stay in tune with his savage side, right? He sort of fantasizes about ripping a woodchuck apart and eating it. By the way, he was not a vegetarian. You see him on a lot of lists of famous vegetarians. He's not all for meat, but at any rate, so Thoreau with that savage side, right? We have to stay in touch with our instincts, right? And I think that's what he means when he's there's a mosquito. I think that's what he means when he's talking about our savage side, is staying in touch with our instincts and not always overthinking things, you want to stay in touch with there's a wisdom in our natures, there's a wisdom, a knowledge in our genes, through many thousands of tens of thousands of years of evolution, that we have to stay in touch with, that feeling inside of us. One of my favorite quotations from this book: "I have always been regretting that I was not as wise as the day I was born." Again, I have always been regretting that I was not as wise as the day I was born. We are born with a certain wisdom, right? We're born with a certain wisdom and a knowledge. And in some ways, right, society reprograms us into thinking we need to have a special pair of shoes for a special occasion. Reprograms us into thinking that we have to keep up with the neighbors always, and we have to have what other people have, and we have to worry about how people judge us. No. Be as wise as the day you were born. Be as wise as the day you were born. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. We'll get to the conclusion of Walden here. Give you the last paragraph. So I told you before, my approach with this book, I want you to get a flavor of it, and you guys had that. I read your papers. Flavor of it, connect it to your life, and maybe when you're older you'll turn back to it again. Maybe those of you who are literature majors, when you're seniors at a 4-year school and you read this again, you'll be like, oh, I remember this. This is good. Berninger, yeah. So I didn't want to beat you over the head with it, drive you crazy with it, and I hope that I haven't done that. I hope that you will come back to this book again and again, and the older you get, the more it will mean to you, and you'll always need it. I did not say that John or Jonathan, Americans or Brits, will realize all this, but such is the character of that tomorrow, which mere lapse of time can never make to dawn. So just time alone isn't going to bring a new day. You've got to bring a new day. The light which puts out our eyes is darkness to us. Only that day dawns to which we are awake. There is more day to dawn, the sun is but a morning star. Now, I bought a new American-made leather belt last year, and for no extra charge, this company would put whatever you wanted embossed inside the belt so other people couldn't see it. And this is what I have inside my belt. Only that day dawns to which we are awake. There is more day to dawn. The sun is but a morning star, right? You have to be awake to life, awake to the dawn. Assert your mind on life. Assert your mind on life. So, hope you enjoyed your time with Thoreau. I hope you never forget him. He does pop up in popular culture and little quotations here and there. I hope you enjoyed your time with Thoreau, and that you are able to carry him with you wherever you go. If nothing else, think about everything you buy. You have to go and sell some of your life to somebody else to get money to buy that, right? There is no greater threat to your freedom than financial ignorance, overspending, and then you have to go work more, work longer in your life. Think about that.